Hey, welcome to another episode of The Healthy Enterprise. Today, my guest is Len May. He's the CEO at EndoDNA. It's a precision wellness company that delivers genetic analysis to medical professionals so they can help customize their healthcare treatment and preventative medicine programs to their patients. He's also an author. He's a global speaker. He's a music fanatic. In fact, he has his own podcast called Everything is Personal. I hope you enjoy today's chat with Len. Len, thank you for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to hearing about your history, and your journey into where you are now with EndoDNA. So, tell us your story. What brought you here today?
Well, I was introduced recently twice as an autodidactic polymath. So I don't know what that means. So I had to look that
So
up.
what? Can you say that again?
Autodidactic polymath. So there's a book on polymaths. So polymaths are people who can do multiple things. You don't necessarily have to go to school for it, but as you do something, you become sort of an expert in that field because, and then you can do that in multiple fields. So for me, I hate to study, but I love to learn. And I think it's sort of my ADD brain that is part of that. So if I'm interested in a subject, I can do a deep dive. And one of the things that I think a gift that I was given was to take really complex information. As long as I understand it correctly in my own head, I can regurgitate that in a way for, a fifth grader to understand. So that's been sort of I was trying to put together and identify what my skill set is really or are, and that seems to be one of them. So when this whole thing with ADD, attention deficit disorder, I was the kind of kid that would sit in class and I would daydream. I would have thoughts, and the teacher would call on me, and I wouldn't be there. And then when I was forced to be there, I was kind of disruptive because I was trying to, people say get attention, but I was trying to get dopamine. So for me, it's that hit of dopamine that I'm missing, because when you have ADD, ADHD in a sense as well, you have a depletion of dopamine. So your brain is always looking for that squirt. How can I get more? So I was diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder, which I really don't like because I never thought it was of me as having a disorder of anything. Sort of my superpower.
It's kind of an unfair phrase, actually. Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when we diagnose people with something, your brain starts making neural connections to that, and you start believing that there may be something wrong with you. Right. And your life is like, oh shit, I have a disorder. I have dyslexia. I have this and I have that.
Disease.
Exactly. So long story, a little bit longer. I was diagnosed with ADD and put on medication.
When you were young?
Yeah. So 14-ish, something like that. So I was put on medication. Okay. Wow. And, it's sort of, I can't say it didn't work, depending on how you define work. Like, it allowed me to focus, but it disconnected me from my sense of self. So the emotional part of me was numb, and you can go through the motions. And anyway, in school, it was probably a year later or so, I was hanging out with some older kids, or maybe less. And they're like, you want to smoke a cigarette? I was like, yeah, man, it'd be cool. Smoke a cigarette. Why not? Let's do it. I had no idea what, cigarettes were causing this and that. I'm like, yeah. So I never questioned that why they had one cigarette. So they passed around this one cigarette. And when I took a drag of it, because I was dabbling in cigarettes then, it didn't taste the same as I remember. I took another drag, maybe coughed, I don't remember. And they were laughing at me. Like, what? And they put cannabis in the cigarette. So when I went back to class, all the windows that were in my head sort of narrowed, and I could focus. I'm like, oh, well, that seems to be my medicine. So I stopped all the prescription medication and would try to see if I can find cannabis, and that became sort of my go-to medicine for a while.
Very interesting. Wow. What a way to discover that.
Yeah.
Almost by accident. That's really interesting. And stepping back to when about diagnosis, like I actually have had people that I know that are being diagnosed as an adult, and to them, they're actually very they're very happy to finally realize what was wrong with them. Like, I mean, they were always questioning where they were. So it's interesting when you talk about how being diagnosed at a younger age as opposed to being diagnosed as an adult seems to explain a lot for some people once they get to that point and go, oh yeah, well, that explains a lot of things. So, but that's interesting that kind of like open the window for you to understand how to adjust your disorder to work better for you. That's very interesting.
I wouldn't say that it did that in the beginning,
Okay.
because when you're still, there's something wrong with you, and you have this perception there's something wrong with you, and you also use this as a crutch in life. So it is because my ADD. Oh, I can't focus because it's my ADD. I can't do this. So when you start telling yourself those things, you start believing those things in
Right.
yourself, and you look at them as a liability instead of an asset. So I think it took me a long time to try to figure out that really I do things differently than other people. When I was in environments with large groups, I could see, this is the way people are doing. What do you mean? I'm focused. I'm like, well, I can only hyper focus when I'm being stimulated. So an example
Right.
would be, I used to paint, or I kind of still do every once in a while. So when I paint, I'm hyper focused, and I'm in the
Right.
studio 6 hours, and I'm not even aware of the time because I'm getting the dopamine. I'm having this reciprocal relationship with what I'm doing. So it allows me to hyper focus. But if I'm not getting that stimulation, then my mind is looking for the next hit. And if you're doing things like, video games, or you're on your phone, that stimulation of dopamine gets you to continually keep doing that. But if it's
Right.
not beneficial, you have to create disciplines for yourself and systems for yourself. So systems are the way that I really learned how to, use as really an effective superpower.
Now tell me about how you got to this place. You're now the CEO of EndoDNA.
Yeah.
So tell us about this. This is a DNA based wellness business. How did you get here? This is where we're
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
get
it's
to.
it's part of the story of cannabis in a way, because when I was consuming first, my parents really didn't like it, and at some point in my late teens, they ended up kicking me out. And not only that, but calling the cops to try to have me arrested, then kicking me out. The irony of this, they consume formulations my company has patents on, and it all came full circle. But then I went into my corporate journey. I worked at different companies like Price Waterhouse, PwC, some venture capital stuff, and worked for. Then I moved into real estate, and from Philadelphia, I moved to Los Angeles, where I live now, and got into the dispensary space in the cannabis space. I was actually doing real estate and helping this group, and they asked me if I wanted to, join them as a partner. So that's what I ended up doing. And the one thing I started seeing was two people will consume the same chemical variety of phytocannabinoids and have a completely different experience. So once again, I had this ADD moment that I need to figure this out. And I started Googling and researching, and I found a video by a guy named Kevin McKernan, who claimed to be the first, or one of the first people who genetically sequenced the plant, the cannabis plant. So I started emailing and got together with Kevin, joined their company as a consultant, and my job was to travel and get plant material from different cultivators, bring it back to my lab, extract the DNA, and sequence it. And we created the first genetic library of different chemical varieties called Cannapedia, put it on the blockchain so everybody has chain of custody. And I could understand what we're calling these plants and names that we're giving them. They don't really align exactly with what's in the plant. So that was my first foray. And then the company that was the parent company of Medicinal Genomics, where I was consulting, they were called Cortigen Life Sciences. And they did what's called pharmacogenomics, which is PGX testing, which is how different drugs affect individual bodies, how they metabolize, and also drug interactions, etc. So light bulb moment one day. I'm like, we have plant material here, we have human DNA here. Let's bring those two together and guide people so they can avoid or mitigate a possible adverse event that people were saying. No, I can't consume this. It makes me feel whatever it is, anxiety, depression, anything. They really had no interest in it. They closed down the human side. So I was lucky enough that I found some really smart people who worked there and formed Endo in 2017. So our first approach was an endocannabinoid system test. So as I said, when we met with the FDA, they said, what is the purpose of the test? And it's to help people either avoid or mitigate a possible adverse event. So the way that it worked is we have a buccal swab. You swab the inside of your cheek. We're HIPAA, we're GDPR compliant. So you treat it just like a medical record. You send that sample to our lab. It takes a couple weeks. Then you log into your portal and you will get your results. The results will look at your genome and show you all the genetic predispositions you may have towards adverse effects. It looks at drug-to-drug interaction, looks at dosing based on metabolic function, and tries to find products based on their certificate of analysis, which are test results that really align with the individual better, so they can avoid those sort of pitfalls or potholes in our road. And in doing that, we learned a lot about genetics and epigenetics. And we started being approached by doctors, healthcare professionals. And one doctor in particular that approached us was Dr. Jennifer Berman, who's one of the top female hormone health specialists and doctors in the country. She was on Oprah and Dr. Phil, etc. And she said, Len, I'm seeing two things that are happening to my patients. Number one, I'm seeing a lot of younger women, late 20s, early 30s, with perimenopause symptoms. I'm like, yeah, it may have something to do with the food and water that we consume with hormones, but we can talk a little bit more about that. But then she said, I also have a lot of women that are coming in with these symptoms of menopause that are creating like really extreme side effects, sort of like hot flash severity, weight gain, really cognitive brain fog, we would call it. She said, is there a way that genetically we can get ahead of these things? So look at the person's genetic predisposition and then create a personalized protocol, which is what I always believe healthcare to be, not sick care, to be able to prevent some of these genetic predispositions for epigenetically expressing, so turning the switches on. So we created our first test in that foray, which was the menopause biotype test. And then we started expanding out to like whole genome. And as you said, precision health and wellness, looking at, female hormone health, male hormone health, personalized nutrigenomics, supplementation, skin, even mental health, and being able to use generative AI to help healthcare professionals create personalized treatment protocols for individuals, not only based on the data they're getting in the moment, but also efficacy data from other people that have similar genetics that have taken this and showed that it was efficacious for.
So how long have you been running EndoDNA now?
So we launched in December of 2017.
2017, right. So what kind of challenges have you been facing in the market, rolling this out? Have you had any, setbacks or obstacles to overcome?
No. Business, it's very smooth. There's absolutely no obstacles. It's the easiest thing.
Amazing.
If anybody wants to get in business and wants to CEO, be a C-suite person in the company, smooth sailing. You don't have to worry about it. It's like a license to print money. It is the most difficult job that I've ever had to experience in my life. But I think what I want to convey to people is when you have an unequivocal belief in something and you really feel, and you read books about this and people talk about this, but when you really feel like deep down, if you can sit down and meditate and say, why the hell am I doing this? What is the purpose? And you have experiences like my daughter was going back to college and she needed like some sort of thing from the doctor that says she had her shot, whatever it is. I went to see a doctor and it's this insurance-based kind of treatment. And they go through the motions. Let me listen to your heart. Let me look at your your throat, whatever it is. Let me hit the mallet on your knee kind of thing. And I think to myself, you know, we're all individuals. We're all unique. But when the doctor tells you to take two of these and call me in the morning, we don't question that. And
Yeah.
why is it two? Why is it not one? Why is it not four?
Right.
This whole notion of, you know, a cookie cutter approach to sick care, we have to do something about that. And we're in the forefront of that. Yes, it's not easy. Many obstacles. You know, genetics. So you have doctors that don't understand genetics or don't think genetics are important. That's one thing. And we can address each one of them. I mean, genetics play a big role. That's part of our genetic makeup. That's what we have as our coding. Now,
Isn't
they
it the
may be right.
foundation of life
It's
on Earth?
it's the foundation of life on Earth. Thank you. But the thing is, you know, they may be right about certain things, and this is where discussion ensues. And the discussions that we have to be based on facts, not
Right.
perceptions. So here are the facts, and now we can discuss real facts. So you have your genetics, you're born with them 50% from your mother, 50% from your father. However, some of those genetic encoding is turned on. So if you think of having a whole bunch of on off switches, like a circuit breaker box,
Yeah.
some of
On your,
them are in the on position. So our skin color, eye color, hair color, these are on. The rest of them, or a lot of them, are turned on based on lifestyle choices. So, yes, there are certain people that are correct. Genetics by themselves sort of give you your life's GPS. Okay.
right.
So it doesn't mean that you drove into the pothole or you went into this traffic jam. It means that your GPS is telling you there's a pothole or there is a traffic jam down there.
Right.
So now you can take action, specifically lifestyle action, to be able to avoid that pothole. That's one thing. So
Right.
it's being able to communicate that accurately with healthcare professionals, scientists, etc. The second thing is the now so what factor. And the now so what factor is sort of the Achilles heel of the genetic testing industry. I found out that I have a genetic predisposition to, you know, brain fog or whatever it is. Now so what? What do I do about that?
Right.
And I was always frustrated by that because I
That's a
do
good
all
question.
these I do all these tests and I'm like, now so what? What do I do? So having a treatment plan, something that can be bookended. So you have your genetic, do this. At least it gives me a course of action. And the third part of this, I can measure it. I can see
Right.
how well that treatment protocol is working. So that's the other challenges to overcome. Just dealing with business day to day. And the other thing is, I think privacy and security and conspiracy theories. I mean, look at what happened 23andMe. Everybody's up in arms. Oh my God, they're selling my genetic data. Well, we're individuals that are able to make decisions. If you go into a privacy policy and it says to you, you're agreeing to have your data go to a big pharma company, you made that decision and you're going to blame the company. Well, I'm not saying they don't have a stake in that as well, but just be aware what you're doing. If you're going to a healthcare professional, you're going to a doctor, you're going to a clinic, you get the same kind of thing. However, they're under HIPAA. So your information is treated like a medical record. Have there been leaks of medical records? Absolutely many.
Of course. Yeah.
Something so as long as a company does their best to say we're protecting your data just like a healthcare professional because we are HIPAA, we're GDPR compliant, and at the end of the day, I don't care about your data. I'm not looking to market. This is not the outcome. I'm looking for data that says that's de-identified, that's anonymized. Say there's 100 people that have a similar genotype to you that have taken this protocol and showed that it was efficacious. We want our AI to learn from that, so it's a more personalized experience. And then the last thing I think is first to market in anything. We have IP, we have patents, but I'm a hockey fan. I'm a sports fan in general. And I remember somebody asked Wayne Gretzky, who was the great one, even though Ovechkin just passed him in
Yeah.
goals scored, but he's still the great one
Former
because
great one. Yeah.
well, no, he's got more
He's
points than anybody.
he's still good. He's still
Goals, nobody's going to catch the point total, I don't think. But anyway, they asked him, how do you score all these goals? And he said, I skate where the puck is going to be. And this is sort of the mentality of life. If you're first, you can follow and it's fine. But if you have a vision and you're first on an island, that's a very difficult place to be because everybody's questioning, well, we haven't seen it before, but somebody has to do it first. And that's okay. I don't mind being that person.
And here you are. You're
Yeah.
doing it. You're doing it first. That's very cool. I like that. Um, what? And so, I mean, you're working with. You're also working in an industry that has some controversy too. You're working in cannabis. So, where specifically have you had hiccups along that course? And maybe explain some of that. I mean,
Yeah.
what's held it back, and how I mean, were you? I'm not super familiar with California cannabis laws. How long has it been legal in
Yeah, it's the
California?
first state in the
First state?
country that,
Yeah.
in 1996, it went medicinal.
Hmm.
It's the third state for, I hate the term recreational, but I'll call it adult use.
Right.
Uh, so we're not a cannabis company. We don't touch the plant. We have nothing
No,
to do with cannabis. And I know you know this. I'm just kind of putting you out
you
in
got
the ether
absolutely
because this is the perception. And the perception is, when you're dealing with the endocannabinoid system, there's a lot of challenges. First of all, you're pigeonholed as a cannabis company. Now, when you're dealing with anything that has to do with cannabis, we get shadow banned. Uh, Advertisers don't want to advertise. Um, Social media challenges, Google, all these different things. And the reason why is because we have a test for your endocannabinoid system. Now, I can't tell a bot, but they should be trained what the endocannabinoid system is. We all have this. This has nothing to do with cannabis. It's part of our evolution.
right.
For millions of years, we evolved with an endocannabinoid system. Now, there are systems within our bodies or things within our bodies that we may no longer need. There's an appendix. Maybe at some point it served a specific purpose, but evolution, we evolved out of that. But we did not evolve out of the endocannabinoid system and receptors. We have we produce our own opioids. We produce our own dopamine, and drugs and in exogenous substances are just that. They're ligands. They bind to a receptor and they release our own neurochemistry. So for us to have this perception that this endocannabinoid, oh my God, this has something to do with drugs and cannabis. It's not. It's your own pharmacy. Your own internal endogenous pharmacy is the best pharmacy in the world.
Yeah, we
That's
have
where we get.
over 1,400 different chemical combinations that our own body pumps out, right?
Exactly, and this is I think the stigma that's
Yeah.
associated with that. So
Yeah.
that's been challenging to have one specific endocannabinoid system test. And like I said, we have many other tests, but that specific test, every single time that we talk about that, we do have a lot of challenges that are associated with that.
So, what are some of the other tests that you do too?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we have this female hormone health test,
Right.
the menopause biotype test. We have a male hormone health test, andropause test. We have skin. We have a nutrigenomic test that looks at your nutrients and supplements and vitamins, etc. We have a mental health test, and there's several other ones. And the platform that we're building on now, that we just have our latest patent on, is going to be the ability to dynamically create reports. So you're going to be able to interact with your platform and ask it to show you a report that's show me all lens inflammatory markers. Cross-reference them with any metabolic markers. Look and see if there's any supplement to drug interactions or maybe supplement to supplement interactions. So you're going to be building reports on the fly. Now we have our large language models set up for the reports that I just mentioned and a couple other ones. But in addition to that, we're going to build dynamic reports on the fly because that's sort of the future, and that creates speed. And if the healthcare professional themselves need to be in partnership with the patient. So
Hmm.
you and the healthcare professional, me and the healthcare professional are a partnership. We are in partnership for my health and wellness. So what do we know? We need to know everything about me so we can create a personalized protocol, a path for uh, health and wellness before it actually, not sick care, but before it actually
Yeah.
expresses itself.
Before something happens.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
thing that I see in healthcare a lot is this thing of, and we, especially as Americans, we're prone to this,
Hmm.
is this: I have a pain somewhere. So my elbow hurts. Okay. Well, what is the solution? Well, I'm going to get rid of your pain. And as a patient, I want to get rid of my pain. And as a doctor, I want to give you a injection, or I'm going to give you something analgesic to get rid of the pain. There should be a deeper question. Well, why is my elbow in pain?
Right.
Why am I showing pain? Well, there's nothing wrong with my elbow. I didn't, hurt myself, playing golf or anything like that. Could it be that there is something else that's creating an overactive immune response that I'm feeling as pain and inflammation, but it's coming from stress,
Right.
extra cortisol secreted, lower
Yeah.
pH level? So these are the conversations. And without knowing all these things about myself, I can't collaborate with my healthcare professional. It's very easy for us to get a shot. And we want that. And, like
Yeah. We want
uh,
instant gratification and we want the
instant
pain to go
gratification.
away. We're always looking to
Exactly.
get rid of the pain.
But listen to it. It is
Yeah.
saying something to you. It's a signal that maybe there's something else, and maybe not, but at least investigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. And it's being studied more and more that that the association with stress and disease in our body is so connected, and we're not actually seeing the connection, or we're not making the connection as individuals, right? We're not saying, well, I always feel this way, and then somehow when I react to a certain situation, I always physically feel another way, like, or I work really hard and then I go on vacation and the next thing you know, I have the flu, and they're disassociating those things. So I can come to you, I can get my genetic testing done. So it is a direct customer access. So I don't have to go through my doctor. I can come straight to you to get my testing done.
Yeah, somewhat. So we are a B2B company.
Okay.
We work with healthcare professionals, and you don't need a prescription or anything like that for it.
No.
But our distribution is healthcare professionals. So what we
Professionals.
do is we white label the test for the healthcare professional for the
Okay.
clinic, and they will administer that. Either they can send it to your home, or you can come into the clinic and do that. But we do have some tests that are available direct to consumer, but we've sort of shifted our model more to a B2B. And the reason for that mostly is data. So if
Right.
you're a doctor and I'm giving you 100 tests to sell your patients, now I'm getting 100 data points, or multiple data points from 100 patients, instead of selling just one to Len, for instance. So it allows us to scale much faster as a business, and allowed us to get better data as a company that's focusing on data.
It makes sense too, because the healthcare provider then actually has information to help their patient and come up with some sort of strategic plan, healthcare plan with them as to how to mitigate some of those issues that might arise. Like, I mean, we all have family, genetically connected family diseases, whatever they may, heart disease or diabetes. They may not be legitimate. We may have the genetic potential for that. Of course, we've been told since we were a child that we live in a family with heart disease. So then you grow up believing that you're probably going to die from heart disease
Yeah.
just because of that. Oh, that may not be true, because it may not have gotten turned on. Like you said, the gene may not have gotten turned on. It was there. I mean, it's probably in all of us, but like you said, it has to be turned on by some sort of uh, situation or lifestyle choice, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing that people need to understand too. Genes communicate. We computers communicate in binary code, ones and zeros. Genes have 4 letters: a C, a T, an A, and a G. And what also I want people to understand: that 99.9% of us are identical. We always fight about our differences,
Yeah.
but the differences are very small. It's that 0.1% that makes us really different genetically. And if we understand what our genetic predisposition is, we can take action associated with that. And as you were mentioning, the healthcare professional, well, the healthcare professional is using this as a tool to help them support their patient, not only with diagnosis, but also with a protocol. So now they're also getting blood values, they're getting biomarkers, and they're combining those biomarkers at baseline. So now you have your genetic predisposition, you have your biomarkers, and now you can make an educated treatment protocol for the patient and come back and measure to see if those biomarkers epigenetically changed. So you have methylation, you have other ways to be able to do that. And now you're completely bookending the experience because you're providing a personalized protocol, you're measuring how well that's working, and you're feeding back into the system so other people can get that kind of personalized care.
Interesting. So then all we ought to do is hook ourselves up to health monitors so that we can have real-time updates on our lifestyle on a day-to-day basis that feed back into the system and keep adding to the data.
Oh, we have that as well. We can
Is that
pull in data from
cool?
your wearable devices like
Yeah,
your Fitbit, your Oura Ring, etc. All that goes into that. All goes into so the idea is we will provide healthcare professionals at some point with real what's called polygenic risk score. So it takes all the data and it says, Len is at the 80th percentile for this based on cohorts. So not based just on clinical data. And we have to have peer-reviewed clinical studies in
sure.
order to create a report. But now we're not only using ClinVar or GWAS, we're not only using studies that are out in the ether on PubMed, we're also using real patient-reported outcome data and biometric data. All that is combined, and it used to be very difficult. Like we've done 10, 11 clinical studies. We're in a phase 2 clinical trial at Harvard. We have a bunch of different studies, and when we have to aggregate the data and analyze it for a study, it's a very cumbersome process.
Yeah, I bet.
But with AI, it makes it so much easier. You prompt correctly, and you get those results really back quickly. So that's the future.
That is the future for sure. Um, and this is I mean you're also sort of identifying very progressive thinking, forward thinking healthcare providers too, because they're obviously they're adopting this as a new way of helping their patients. So there's not, there'll be a segment of doctors who will not buy into this, right? But
Yeah.
there's
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's the same kind of thing that I was saying earlier about doctors don't understand genetics.
yeah,
Some doctors don't want to understand. I find it fascinating. I never knew this before I took a deeper dive. Doctors, healthcare professionals have to have continual education. Well, okay, but if you're going and you're not really educating, you're just kind of checking off that I want to get a CE credit so I can continue and have an active license. Functional medical professionals, integrative medical professionals, those are the professionals, the healthcare professionals gravitate towards this rather than certain specialists. And there's multiple stories. Like, you know I'll tell you a really quick story. Maybe this will help to illuminate the use and how people can utilize this for their health and wellness. Is So I have a friend who's a very financially successful business person. He started a venture, and it didn't go well. He was extremely stressed and depressed. And later on, when we did his DNA test, he had some depressive markers, but he never really experienced that. So he went to a psychopharmacologist and he received a antidepressant drug. So he was driving in the Los Angeles area. He doesn't live here, but he was driving here and he's had his family. I think his kid, he was taking him to a game or somewhere. And we have these canyon windy roads that, you can, interesting drives. But he said he had this, it's a feeling of wanting to drive off the cliff. And he goes, it was so real, like, it was so scary, and he just wanted to drive off the cliff, and he had to pull over. And he pulled over, and his wife got out, and it's like, "You okay?" He goes, "No, I'm not okay. I should not be driving." Luckily, he was able to recognize that.
yeah,
Now, when he went back and did his pharmacogenomics test, the drug that he was given was red, means that it wasn't for him anyway. And
wow,
also, when he did his DNA test, he had treatment resistant depression genes. So that means that most of these drugs will not be efficacious, they won't work for him, but he will still experience the side effects of these drugs. And I was given a talk in San Diego to
Wow.
a bunch of pharmaceutical companies and people working for big pharma, etc., and doctors. And I asked, how many psychopharmacologists do genetic testing or even pharmacogenomic testing before they prescribe a drug to their patients? How many do you think raise their hand? Zero.
1%? None.
Zero. Not
Oh
one.
my God.
So this is how we want to educate. And you're right. Sometimes it's a pain. Doctors don't want to do this. It's an extra step. But if you can show doctors that they can generate revenue while helping their patients, while using a third party to crunch the data, give them better predictive inferences, those are the things. It becomes a really true collaboration, and that's really our goal.
Well, and you'd like to think that, they all, everywhere, most people in the healthcare industry went into it in the hopes that they're going to help somebody someday, do something good, make someone else's life better. And so you have to hope that that's at the heart, or that's at the core of why they're doing this in the first place. And so if they can see this, maybe there's hope that they might actually embrace it. But is storytelling, like, that was a great story. I mean, I is that do you leverage storytelling like that to market, like to
Yeah,
to
that's
spread the word?
that's
That's how you do it.
that's how I do it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that we do a really good job as a company marketing. We can definitely do a better job, but this is how I get information. I remember stories. I always, when I speak, I try to tell stories as well because I feel people remember
Yeah.
stories better than facts. You're
It's
right
very
about the doc.
compelling. Yeah.
I appreciate you. You're right about the doctors. The nature of a healthcare professional is I want to do good. I want to help heal people. The challenge is that some of them have ingrained biases and specialties. So I tore my meniscus on my knee, and I started going to orthopedic surgeons, and people are telling me, "Ah, easy. I'll open it up, snip it. It's like a hangnail. I'll snip it off, and it's done."
No way.
Okay, so I went to multiple surgeons like that, which is their training, and they may be fantastic surgeons, and they could do a great job, and it may be easy for me, and maybe easy for them. However, is there an alternative? And if I started thinking critically, say, okay, I'm a pretty active person. If you're going to remove something, I'm in my 50s. If you're going to remove something out of my knee, you're going to snip on one side, you're going to snip on the other side. I'm just logically thinking that the area is becoming shorter and shorter, smaller. Now I had this, like a bigger area, now I have a smaller area. Well, if
Yeah.
I continue to be active, that area may be compressed even more. And I asked the surgeon, I said, if that's the case, what's going to be the outcome? He goes, 10, 15 years, you're probably going to have knee replacement surgery. Okay. Well, I'm not looking forward to that. Is
Mm-mm.
there an alternative? So you have to search for alternatives. One alternative that I was told, you can do exosome injections, precursors to stem cells, even though stem cells are a weird, thing in the United States where it's you have to go offshore to get these kind of stem cells and all that stuff. But exosomes are compliant, you can do that. So what does that do? Well, if it takes, it can regrow tissue. So for
Mm.
me, instead of removing, I have an option of regrowing.
Right.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Or somebody said you can take bone marrow and you can spin it and create your own stem cells and platelets and inject it back. So I would rather try some other, they call it alternative, but whatever, it's other therapies. And if you're logically thinking, is it easier for you to remove? Yeah, maybe it's easier for you to do that and don't worry about it. And maybe exosomes won't take, and maybe they're expensive and your insurance will cover the surgery, but you're going to have to pay a few $1,000s for exosomes. So you have to kind of weigh that. And this
Right.
is where the collaboration with the healthcare professional comes in because you have to know all the options. And if you are an excellent surgeon and this is what you do, that's where you're going to go to. And you don't have the bandwidth to learn that there's something else. It's too much. And that's sort of, you have to, you as a patient have to do your due diligence as well.
Yeah. And come to terms with what your what your limitations are, whether they're
Right.
resources or finances or what have you. But yeah, that does become the bridge that everyone has to cross at some point,
Mhm.
right? But on the other side of that, if we're implementing these kinds of approaches to our own health early on, we might avoid most of those situations later on. Now, that might be something that insurance companies are going to be more interested in pushing, right, as a way to avoid on their end payouts and etc.
We hope so.
Yeah,
So Peter Attia, who's a doctor, people can look up Peter
yeah. I
Attia.
just got his book.
Yeah.
It just came. I haven't cracked the plastic on it yet.
So I just heard him speak. We were at a conference together, and he
Oh,
said
cool.
this. He said this, which is fascinating and goes along the lines of what you were saying. He said, "What if we reversed Medicare and changed it and said everybody from the age of 18, let's say, I don't know, remember, now everybody has Medicare, and you're subsidizing your health care, but you're actually creating preventative healthcare plans. So, and you are incentivized with lower payments, whatever that, maybe they'll cover 50% of
Right.
whatever your payment is. Maybe it'll be 70, based on milestones, based on things, actions that you take to work and help your own health and wellness.
Right.
And at
Yeah, that makes sense.
65, you flip and now you pay for your Medicare, but because you've worked so hard to prevent disease from expressing itself,
Yeah.
now the cost for the insurance companies and governments may be a lot less. I love that idea. Will it be implemented? I don't know, because it's going to be, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, and pharmaceutical company. Is there a financial incentive to cure a disease? Or do we like to, or is it financially lucrative for pharmaceutical companies to continue to provide drugs to be able to treat the symptoms of disease? I'm just putting it out there.
It's a good question. It's a real question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, when we're talking about life insurance, for example, I mean, when does not, when do they never have to pay out life insurance? I mean, eventually everyone dies. So, I
Yeah.
mean, the longer, maybe for them, it's the longer they live, the less likely they will have to pay that out. But I don't know. Maybe we'll all have expiry dates soon.
Well, I think we have this longevity. Longevity is key, and everybody's trying to live
Yeah.
longer. But I think living longer, being healthy, is the key. I've experienced people end of life, last 10 years of being sick and holding on.
Yeah.
You're not living, you're existing. And
Yeah.
living longer, but still being sick at your old age is no fun. So
No.
we have to be able to work on our health span. And look, one of the things, we talked about this whole endocannabinoid system, and it's something that's discovered in only 1992, and it hasn't been studied, and a lot of healthcare professionals don't really even know there's an endocannabinoid system. And when you have this endogenous system that helps to maintain homeostasis or balance within our bodies, you should at least know what it is and how it works. If you're treating the whole person, you know what the endocrine system is, you know what the
Right.
immune system is, you should know that. So we need to do a better job educating, and we need to be open-minded to other things. And there's Eastern medicine, there's Western medicine. I always look at it as medicine. There's no such thing as Eastern, Western, whatever medicine. We should be able to take all the knowledge and be able to address an individual's needs to prevent disease from being expressed. And most of the drugs that pharmaceutical companies create and all this comes from plants anyway. We've discovered it in a plant. We were able to synthesize it and create a molecule. And that's when it becomes, this is a drug that's legal. This is a drug that's illegal. Well, who's really determining that and why? So all philosophical questions that I'm not going to be able to answer right now,
No.
but we can have a really good open debate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you brought up homeostasis too, it's interesting to understand what that actually means. And I don't know, not everybody, I've only kind of come to the terms of understanding with uh, the balance of our internal systems, and when is our body in a state of homeostasis, and it's when we're no longer in survival mode, when we're kind of living in a place where all our systems are working cohesively and in unity. But that's in our society right now. Very few people at any given moment are living in a state of homeostasis. We're so we have a very different lifestyle than what that's conducive for. So understanding more about our our composition is definitely going to give us an edge and maybe help us learn how to achieve that state. Yeah. What I have a few more questions here for you, but have you can you discuss any sort of partnerships that have been pivotal in Endo's growth?
Yeah, sure. I mean, lots of partnerships on the research side. So partnering with, McLean, Harvard Medical, Wayne State
Hmm.
in Michigan, Shum in Montreal. Working with a lot of different researchers. That's been a pivotal, uh, acceptance because science needs to be validated. And when you're doing clinical studies, that's one of the best ways that you step forward and say, okay, we're not just talking about this, we're actually proving the efficacy of this stuff. The second, I would say, is some of our business partnerships have been fantastic. I already mentioned Dr. Jennifer Berman. She's
Mm-hmm.
been a really big advocate for female hormone health and what we're doing with them. Also, uh, companies like Bella Vita to do hormone optimization in across multiple states. They're able to utilize our tests with all their patients. That's been really beneficial. And companies like Illumina that provide our genetic sequencing and genotyping equipment. They provide the reagents. When we're working with a buccal swab, just to make sure that we're getting enough material, genetic material from a cheek swab, and sequencing and genotyping that correctly, and seeing that we're getting 99.6% accuracy. There's a big chain, the lab, the equipment, the swab, the reagents that go with it. These are all partners that help us create an accurate way to an accurate test and accurate report.
Yeah, as part of this growth, because you've been experiencing some growth recently. Um, what is the plans? What are you where are you going with this? Like, what is your plans for growth right now?
Well, my plan was always sort of as setting the vision to build the world's largest database for efficacy. That
Mm,
is the goal. How we get there changed along the way. There's no straight line. I know
sure.
business is easy, so people say, "I'm going to do this," and you jump in, and it just happens that
It
way.
just happens. Yeah,
but
you
uh,
wake up and it's over.
there's been some windy roads and detours and stuff. But the idea is still that people ask, "What's your exit? Are you going public?" I have none of that in mind. We'll entertain. We have some M&A opportunities. The the fastest, most effective way that we can get, and for our shareholders too. People want to make sure that there's they benefit financially too. They trusted us, and I want to make sure that they have a return. So you have to consider all those different things, but the vision is still the same. It's to provide precision health and wellness while gathering data to create the largest repository on efficacy, so we can help healthcare professionals make better and more informed decisions. So that is still how we scale. And like I said, we decided and made a decision to go B2B for the most part, have OEM relationships. And the reason why is if Len is looking for a test in the Pennsylvania area, you can go on and say, well, here's the providers that can they can see you, they can help you and get the test that are
Right.
closest to you. Will geolocate that as well. So that's the scale, that's the plan, and we're open to opportunities. We're talking to a lot of interesting people about scale and the best way that we can scale that's most effective for our shareholders as well as our customers. That's probably the direction we're going to go.
And your primary target audience is healthcare providers at the moment, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
healthcare providers, clinics, doctors, functional, integrative. We have specialists. Anybody that's doing hormone optimization, working with female hormone health. We have a test for that. We have, like I said, nutrigenomics. So anyone that's in the supplement, vitamin, nutrient space, even food, even though we don't specialize in that, but you need to know where deficiencies are, because if you're like, I'll give you an example. If you're predisposed to iron deficiency and you decide you're going to be a vegan and you're not supplementing that, well, yes, you can get a blood draw, but
Hmm.
those blood draws are moments in time. You have to see over time. I'll give you another quick story, my own personal. So,
Yeah.
uh, I do not do really well with blood draws. Uh, I'm all tattooed. If you can't see me, have tattoos. So it's not the
Yeah.
needle. It's not the needles.
Yeah.
It's something about the blood leaving my body. I have no idea. So I was getting my physical, and I went to a integrative clinic, and I was getting my physical, and they said you're doing a blood test. So I came in the morning, sat down. I said, I don't do well with blood. No, you'll be fine. You'll be great. I said, all right, I'm just telling you, I don't do well. So they get the needle, and I'm having a conversation. At some point, I hear, Lisa, get in here. I don't know what's going on, but apparently I started sliding off the chair. And they came in, they're like, oh, let me give you some juice and all that stuff. So I got that. And they're like, you're good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. All right, we're going to continue. I'm like, what do you mean? They go, well, we have to pull the needle out
We're not done.
because you were sliding off. We have to continue. All right. So they finally got my blood work. I come back to my doctor and we're going over, everything is great, except she's like, your blood glucose level is high. I'm like, really? I don't eat sugar. I don't eat meat. I don't eat sugar. How is that? If you, I don't know, it could be cortisol. I'm like, what do you mean? I kind of know this already, but this is where the relationship with your healthcare professional is really important. Well, if through
Mm.
stress, I'm secreting a lot of cortisol, which can actually raise my blood glucose level. So if the doctor doesn't know this, and if I don't know this, well, the first thing they would do is say, you're pre-diabetic. Let's put you in a GLP inhibitor or something like that.
Yeah.
She said, listen, I'm not really concerned about this, but if you are, I'll prescribe a glucose monitor, wear that for several weeks and see. And that's exactly what I did. Nothing. It went up. I was eating this Thai dish and it was probably full of like corn syrup or something like that. And it went up.
Sure.
But that's the case. So understanding that and stress is a huge part of it, and your endocannabinoid system is responsive for balance. And if you have different predispositions and you're secreting more cortisol, that cortisol can actually create some of those things. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is having this information alone is not enough. Having the information with a healthcare professional that knows how to interpret this and knows what to do, and that's where we're helping them, that's a collaborative experience instead of just
Yeah.
throwing a pill at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you finding naturopaths are interested in this too?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're
very much so.
naturopaths, DOs, functional medical professionals, anybody that's in the space of preventative health and wellness.
Yeah.
And I'd say healthcare versus sick care. You go to your practitioner and you have a symptom, they want to address your symptom. They've never asked you or inquire. I used to go my doctor, Dr. Chen, who is, and she's a doctor of Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. I mean, first of all, she checks both pulses. She yells at me that I brush my tongue because it tells her everything. And when I have a symptom, she goes, oh, that's related to your kidney
Mm.
function. This is related to that. I've never had this conversation with my doctor before. Well, what do you mean? I have a pain in my throat. What does that have to do with my kidney? I'm just giving an example. And
Yeah.
that's the ability to be able to see the causation with this symptom.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And, um, you know, well, you said this earlier, it ties in with our lifestyles. It's how we see the world, how we react to the world. And 9 times out of 10, you don't even get asked that by a doctor. Oh, what is your lifestyle like? Oh, I think they ask, how much alcohol do you drink every week? Do you smoke? Do you do drugs? If so, how often? Like um, they're very isolated about lifestyle. It's about, do you eat a lot of fat? I mean, there's really nothing about how do you feel or how do you react to the world. Do you consider yourself a highly stressed individual? What is your work life? I mean, it's all connected, right? It's all tied together.
Well, one of the reasons why they do that is because we have clinically validated assays for every healthcare professional. Like the one that you say,
Right.
what's my pain from 1 to 10? These are actual, and there's a sleep one, the Pittsburgh sleep score, and there's ones that are clinically validated. They go through the motions of asking those. You're absolutely correct. But, genetics and epigenetics. So when going back to genetics, when we have these predispositions, how do we control our lifestyle? What's important in our lifestyle to turn things on
Right.
and off? Well, the first thing is what we put in our bodies, the food, the nutrients that we consume, that can turn genetic expression on and off. What
Right.
else? Well, exposure to heavy metal, plastics, chemicals, that can. The other part is our own
Trauma. Could trauma do it
trauma.
too?
That's what I was going
Yeah.
to say, our own neurochemistry. So our own neurochemistry can actually turn on epigenetic expression. So, stress hormones, all those different things, they can turn them on and off. So these are the things that, once again, when you have 15 minutes in the US, when you have 15-minute doctor visit, or you probably get the most reimbursement back for insurance for that visit. But what do you have time for in 15 minutes?
No, to
And
get to
that
know that person and understand who they are. And
exactly. So
yeah.
that's a fine line between the business of medicine versus
Yeah.
the practice. And remember, it's a practice of medicine, and
Yeah.
your body wants to heal. If you're putting your body in the right direction to heal and you have the right
Right.
mindset, it's all going to start healing itself.
It's naturally programmed to heal
Exactly.
constantly and survive and persevere and preserve itself for the future.
Exactly.
Not just for us as an individual, but actually for the entire species working as a unit, right? Couple things. The polymath that you talked about at the very beginning, I kind of related to that whole thing, so I'm going to look into that because I may be one of those too. The other thing is I also pass out giving blood.
I bet you there's a
Many
gene for that.
times. What's that?
I bet you there's a gene for that. I got to do some research.
There probably probably is. So a couple other things. What what is significantly, or who or what has significantly influenced you in your journey? Is there any particular methodology or way of thinking or a book you've read or a person you've listened to?
People talk about mentors, and sometimes your mentors, you don't have to meet your mentors. Your mentors can provide material that you connect to. So I've had many of those along the way, and I did have mentors also, but it's such a wide range of people. So like people like Richard Branson, who's
Mm-hmm.
my ADD, ADHD hero. He had to open 400 companies because he
He
had to,
did.
and he had the opportunity to. People like Tony Robbins, who were there. I mean, I started out with Jim Rohn. I'm always working on
Mm.
personal development. I
I
just
like
came
Jim
back
Rohn.
from a Joe Dispenza retreat. So
Oh, I love Joe Dispenza. Yeah. You
anything,
went to a retreat?
yeah.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
very,
I
very
want to go.
intense.
I want to do that
It's
so bad.
incredible, but very intense.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to work on you,
Yeah.
especially being in a C-suite of a company, or like this, you have to feed yourself to be able to, feed others. So this is key in my life. People like Howard Stern, who I
Mm-hmm.
grew up listening to on a daily basis. I met so many high school and college classes because I was listening to Howard Stern. I mean, just an incredible interviewer. The way he tells stories and asks questions, you learn a lot from that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So, and Viktor Frankl, Men's Search for Meaning, one of the pivotal books I read
Mm-hmm.
in my life. Robert Greene wrote 48 Laws of Power and Mastery, and Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. I'm a I don't like to read books anymore because they put me to sleep, but I listen to books. I did like 93 books, and this is back to the polymath. The amount of information I extract from books that I listen to, and you have to figure out where you connect to. Some people are audible, some people are visual, all these different things, and that works for me. So
Mm-hmm.
extracting that information and being able to then regurgitate it back, that's been a big thing in my life. And then my dad has been a pretty good fixture in my life on certain advice, even though we don't agree on everything. He's a corporate guy, he's an ex-engineer and all that other stuff. So he's very linear thinking, but it's really good to have that perspective. And then like motivation, like my daughter is a huge motivation in my life. There's a sense of meaning. And then when you read like Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, when you have meaning in your life and you truly connect to that meaning, it makes those obstacles in your life be less sort of how do I say that, apocalyptic. They're
Yeah.
you can kind of put them into perspective, and it's okay. What's the worst
Yeah.
thing that can happen? Okay, so you know I'll have to move or I'll sell my house or whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
And I've had things like that. I went through a divorce. I was homeless. I've had failures. I've had all these things that happen in my life, and the resilience is sort of like your muscles. You go to the gym and you work your muscles and you're in pain, but that pain only makes your muscles be stronger the next day or the next couple of days. So you have to understand that it's going to be okay and it's temporary. It's
Yeah.
all temporary.
Change is the constant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you actually just spoke about to the last year of my life. My wife actually went in for a stem cell transplant last March. So we were completely removed from society, thrown back into COVID measures, masks, a home alone, disconnected from people. And then we actually spent 4 months in another city where she went through a treatment. And then that whole time, I have not read probably 10 books in my entire life, and in the last year I've read about 30 for some reason. I don't know, out of left field. So you just, a lot of those authors that you just recited, I surrounded myself with those people for that time frame, and I read things to my wife during the process too. And Joe Dispenza was, probably not the biggest figure in all of that. But another one I'll just share with you is Gabor Mate. I don't even know him.
Yeah.
Very great book. There's a couple of them that are on the shelf too. So anyway, yeah, that kind of really related to what you just said. That's been a big part of my life in the last year or so.
Great.
I want to just recognize it's not an elephant in the room, but you're surrounded by music. You have a podcast that you talk about music that I checked into, and so you have a history in music. So tell us about what's going on with the music back there, and then you also have to share with me your favorite album, because then and we'll wrap it
Oh
up
man,
with
that's a tough one. But music has been a part of my life. So I grew up in Philly, and my mom hated air conditioning. So in the summertime, it would get so hot. I have like a little fan in my window, and I couldn't sleep. So I would have like a little radio and a cassette recorder. I'm old, so I would put that to the speaker, and I would
that. I had
make
one of those too.
I make tapes, and I make like mixtapes,
Oh
and I would
yeah.
cut the tapes and do all that stuff. So music was a huge part of my life since I was a kid, basically. And when I got kicked out of the house and I was no job, no home, and I was just graduating high school and I was going to go to college, I would I would go to the record store. Tower Records was my record store, and then I ended up getting a job at Tower Records, and I became a music buyer and all that stuff. So I really got thrown into the business of music. I did some other stuff after that. I had a music company called Mayday Music, but it's been a huge part of my life. I played some instruments here or there, but that's not really what it is. I love discovering music, and I love listening to music, and I thousands and thousands and thousands of CDs and vinyl and all that stuff. So every day at lunch, because I have to have structure, so my lunch time is structured, and what I eat for lunch is my ex-wife used to tell me all the time, is like, why do you always eat the same thing? I'm like, because I don't have to think about it. I'm like, there's only three options, and I eat one of the three, and that's it. I don't have to think about it. I'm not wasting time. Probably not fun for somebody, but that's my thing. So I would grab an album from my collection, I would put it on, and I would listen to music as I'm making myself lunch or whatever. And then I started this record of the day. So I started posting myself, whatever I grabbed, I would share with people on social media, and people seemed to like it. So very eclectic taste from anything from like John Coltrane to Wu-Tang Clan to Stevie Wonder and everything in between.
Amazing. It's great. Well, it's only been a few days, but I've been enjoying watching your picks, and I've been looking them up on just check them out. So I appreciate that. So,
but the number one album, or my favorite album, it's such a difficult thing to say because it varies. Like it varies in the moment. I can grab my Led Zeppelin 2 and I can put it on and listen to every single song. But I can also do the same with Stevie Wonder Inner Visions, and I can do that with Jamiroquai, and I can do that with Kind of Blue and Miles. So it all depends.
Yeah,
I'm either in my Black Sabbath phase. Yeah, I'm either in my Black Sabbath phase or I'm in my Amy Winehouse phase. So
yeah, exactly.
It really is like a difficult thing to say. And like on my podcast, I ask people like, tell me 5 albums you would listen to for the next year. And even that's difficult for me. People ask me
that would be hard. Yeah.
But that's sure. At least I can kind of do that, like albums that I won't get sick of. But so that's the one that's what stand out today.
Awesome. Len, thank you so much, man. I've really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you, and you had a lot to share. So I really appreciate you joining me on this episode, and I think everyone listening will have enjoyed hearing from you as well. So maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Appreciate it, man. Anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that was a great conversation with Len May from EndoDNA. Super passionate guy. Really like his perspective on things, and he tells great stories. So if you want to learn more about their AI-powered DNA analysis, go to endodna.com. Loved hearing about the endocannabinoid system. I did not know a lot about that, so I'm going to do a little more digging and find out more about that as well. Eliminated the cannabis relation between this company and that product. They are not selling a cannabis product. So there you go. Be innovative, stay ahead of the curve, and think outside the box. Great advice from Len May. And pop over to his podcast and listen to some great music. Everything is personal. Find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Hope you have a great day.